Good afternoon, everybody, or maybe good morning, depending on where you're tuning in from. My name is Nathan Hill. I'm here with my good friend Adam O'Brien from the I Donate team, and we are thrilled that you are joining us. I would love to start things off as we always do. If you could jump into the chat, the comments, wherever you're tuning in from. I assume most people are on LinkedIn. We might push to YouTube and Facebook as well. Jump into the comments and let us know. We'll see your name come through for sure, but who you are, what organization you're from, and where in the world are you tuning in from, streaming in from today? Adam, where are you streaming in from today?
Well, today I am hanging out in Charleston, South Carolina. It's hot outside, summertime, but I can't be mad. We're maybe 10, 15 minutes from the beach. So if all else fails, that's where I'm heading.
I love it. I love it. We've got kind of cloudy, maybe sort of rainy day here. We're in Fort Collins, Colorado. It's been hot here, like outside of kind of the norm. It's been like upper 90s, which is strange, but grateful for a little cloud cover today, a little bit of rain. We've got lots of people jumping in. We've got Luke from Arrow in Riverside, California. We've got Philip, also from California. We've got, let's see, they're blowing up. I can't even keep up with them. We've got Julie from Community Action Agency in Tempe, Arizona. Rebecca, founder of the Caregiving Support Network, watching from Pennsylvania. Ooh, Batavia, Illinois. Hello. Welcome from Water Street Studios. Awesome, awesome, awesome. We're so glad you all are here. Ooh, look at that. Katie, Eugene, Oregon, Child Aid in Guatemala. I got some international footprint here too. That's wonderful. Thrilled as always to see just how far reaching kind of this cause, this mission of how do we just grow giving and generosity together, how far that cause is reaching. Let's jump in. I'm going to share a couple of slides. And as we do that, I'll give you sort of the lay of the land of where we're going to go today, because we've been doing a few of these different LinkedIn live streams. And this one might be a little bit different. We're going to talk first about some different like donation page optimization tactics and principles at a high level. We're not going to go super deep. We'll hopefully spend about 10 to 15 minutes doing that. And then Adam and I are going to dive in and look at some live donation pages. I like to call it live optimization. Some people might call it a roast. Let's not call it a roast. I mean, Adam, speak for yourself. I'm going to try to be kind today. But we're going to look at some live donation pages and suggest a lot of ideas that you might be able to put to the test that we think could actually lead to a lift based on things we've learned historically about what works to grow giving and generosity. I'll introduce who Next After is if you're new to Next After, and then I'll give Adam a chance to talk about I Donate as well. But I Donate and Next After kind of on this journey together. I Donate is what we would call an optimization partner, where they're making some strategic investments to equip and empower their customers, the people using the I Donate platform, to not just have the tactics and strategies in place to go optimize giving specifically on their donation forms, but also to have the tools in place. And Adam can share more about that, to actually go install and implement testing so you can get real concrete data about what works and what doesn't to grow giving. So thrilled to be kind of jointly talking to you today about donation page optimization. If you're new to Next After, we really do one primary thing, which is we help nonprofits grow their digital fundraising. We do that in three primary ways. We're a research lab where we could go conduct what we call mystery donor research. We make a lot of donations to a lot of organizations. We become a donor and we go feel what it's like, all the good things, all the painful things in the donation experience. And we try to uncover what are some potential pain points across the sector, but also what are some of the opportunities, the new ideas, the innovative tactics that we can then go put to the test and see, do these things actually move the needle? We're a digital first agency where we do full service digital work, everything from sending email appeals to running advertising campaigns, acquisition, retention, cultivation, the works, but everything is rooted in A/B testing. Again, trying to decode what actually works to grow giving. And then through our training institute, we want to go share everything we're learning with you to go equip as many nonprofits as possible with what's working to lift giving and generosity. To date, actually, this number is already out of date because it's always going up, but we have 6,896 experiments in our A/B test library, our online fundraising library. Every single one of those represents a learning about what works to get more people to say yes to giving. So that's Next After in a nutshell. Adam, do you want to give just kind of a quick overview of who I Donate is, what you do, what you care about?
Yeah, what do we do? We are focused on really one thing predominantly. That's helping nonprofits convert their website traffic into donors and fundraising dollars, right? How we do that, donation pages and donation forms are our bread and butter, where, as you heard Nathan mention, we're basically BFS and have been. And Nathan and I were just in the office in Texas last week discussing what we're doing today and plans for the future. And really, that's how Donate is rolling. We're taking a lot of the data-backed experiments and results from Next After. We're putting those into play within our actual platform, right? The templates that you have access to out of the box is all driven through what we'll cover too, best practices. Nathan, should we have a donate button on our homepage? Should we have a header? Should we have things placed specifically on those templates? Yes, it's already done. We have a big play within the A/B testing aspect as well, within the actual platform, which is cool. I love it. As a marketer for the last 15 years, that's a no-brainer for me. And we're making it easy so you don't have to have a science degree. So a lot of other cool things to go on that you'd expect out of a donation page and form platform. But at the end of the day, we're focused on helping nonprofits be as efficient for not only the short-term burst of revenue, but also the long-term growth on their website. So that's us.
Amazing. And I think we're becoming fast friends as well, realizing like we listen to the same like mid 2000s hardcore and punk bands and all that sort of stuff. So
we play guitar, like we're basically BFFs.
I love it. I love it. So if you have any questions about mid 2000s punk or hardcore, just drop those in the chat. We can address those at the end. Let's dive into just a little bit of kind of like high level, sort of somewhat theoretical, but we'll make it practical too. Just sort of the methodology that we typically take as we think about how do we grow and optimize the giving experience at a high level. And if you've gone through any Next After courses, you've probably seen this similar analogy, but it's an important one, I think, to come back to. I always like to start here by looking at what's the average conversion rate on a donation page. There's a lot of different types of donation pages, so there's not like a one-size-fits-all sort of category. Today, we're going to focus on really the main donation page and what we see on average, and that's a key word because there's a lot of variance, but on average, the main donation page converts at about 13.5%, meaning 13.5% of people that show up on the page end up actually making a donation, whether that's one time or they're starting a new recurring gift or otherwise. And as a fundraiser, as a marketer, even just in any form of sales or marketing, oftentimes we look at things through the lens of a funnel. In our case, we'll call it the donor funnel. When we look at things through the lens of the funnel, it basically implies that the primary way to grow is to get more people in the top. If we have a clear pathway, we can pat ourselves on the back for our 13% conversion rate. Woohoo, we've got a pathway to giving. We just need to get more people to show up because 13% of them are going to give. As an optimizer, we're never really content with that 13% conversion rate. The inverse of that metric is a whole lot more interesting to me and to Adam, where we're trying to figure out, both through copy and creative, through technology, through the forms, how do we get that 87% failure rate to an 86, to an 85, to an 84, and slowly work our way towards a more optimized experience? Because 87% of the people that show up on the page, for one reason or another, are not giving. It could simply be they came to get some more information, they're not quite ready to give, and then they left. Okay, not much we can do about that. But if there's blockers in the way, if there's hurdles or barriers, there's elements of friction, things that are causing concerns and anxiety on the page, maybe it's just a broken form altogether. It could be stopping someone from giving altogether. So we've got to figure out how do we optimize that experience to get more people who are already in the funnel to actually say yes to giving. We like to flip the funnel analogy on its head because for a funnel to work, you need gravity to naturally pull whatever it is through the funnel. I think about making a cup of coffee in the morning, gravity pulling the water down through the grounds. In our case, the natural forces, the kind of outside forces in a donor's life are not helping them say yes to giving. They're distracting them and trying to get them to go anywhere else, do anything else. Why should I continue down this process when I was kind of interrupted in the first place by an ad or an email? Why shouldn't I just go back to what I was working on before? Why should I continue down this journey? If we flip it on its head, it shows kind of the amount of work that it takes to actually make a donation, the hard work to say yes at every single step. When you flip it on its head again, it looks more like a mountain. So we like to look at this journey through the lens of the donor mountain, where your donor starts down here. They're warming up hands around the fire. They've got their backpack full. They're ready for their climb. We're hoping that they get to the top. That's our goal for them, is to actually make a donation at the very top. And there's a bunch of different, what we would call micro decisions along the way that someone has to say yes to every single one of them to actually make it all the way to the peak. Now, for an example, if you go send an email to a potential donor, or maybe an existing one you're trying to get to reactivate or to give again, the first question they have to answer is not, should I give? It's, should I even open the email in the first place? And if they say yes, then we have to get them to actually choose to click through and read more and come to the page and read the copy that's on the page, and then ultimately say yes, that yes, I should donate. And then they've still got to get out the credit card, fill out the form, do all that sort of stuff, click that final donate button. And if they say no at any point along that way, you've lost them. You've got to start over. So you can optimize every single one of these little micro decisions. And that's really the approach that we take when we think about testing and optimization. At the end of the day, you, the fundraiser, the marketer, the communicator, the person working day in and day out at the nonprofit, trying to raise money for a really critical cause, you're the guide. It's our job to help shoulder some of the weight, to reduce the friction in the process, reduce the burden in the process, show them the paths to the top, inspire them and motivate them to say yes at every single step. That's very kind of high level theoretical, but I think it's a helpful sort of framework as we think about how do we optimize the giving experience from the shoes of the donor, from their perspective. Empathy is probably the most important tool that any of us can have as a marketer, as a fundraiser, as a communicator. Adam, we're going to go look at a couple quick like tactical things of how to apply this, things we've learned from testing. Any thoughts just on sort of like the funnel to mountain methodology, the idea of we're the guide for the donor to get them to the top?
No, it's almost like I just learned about this last weekend when I went and actually got certified with y'all's course. So I'm actually donation page optimized certified. No, and I think it's the long game, right? It's so many times, yes, as nonprofits are after that, hey, let's get that bump. But it's like, what do you do after that? If you don't do anything, you're going to drop off and you go back to the way you were in terms of new donors, people creating fundraisers, the stickiness of it. And that's really you and I are focused on in our teams is like, hey, how do we make those incremental moves as we move forward? So I'm vibing what you got so far.
I love it. Well, we're going to look at some live pages here in a moment, and Adam and I are going to break those down using this kind of like ideology, methodology, if you will, but a couple practical, tactical things before we get there. One idea for you just on optimizing the layout of your donation page. For some of you, this might be like real basics, real easy, but when you go start to look around all the different pages that are out there, it's a pretty common problem. We want to focus these pages, these donation pages, and really any kind of conversion page on one singular call to action. In this case, we're asking them to make a donation. We shouldn't be asking them to go do 5 or 6 other things at the same time. We shouldn't be running ads on these pages. We shouldn't have things like a navigation. That's my recommendation for you. Remove that navigation from this page. I just hit the donate button and I've come to the page with the intention of giving. I shouldn't have a bunch of other options before I start to even read the copy to say, it's okay if you go look at the events calendar. It's okay if you go read the blog. No, we're focused on one thing, which is making the donation. We don't want to run ads in the right column. It's a very common place for people to just go plug sort of an ad for an event that's coming up or kind of a community thing that's happening or some kind of new piece of content that you have. We want to get rid of all that stuff and be focused on one call to action. A very simple experiment here. Version A versus version B. Version B removes the navigation from the page, and it led to a 195% increase in donations just by removing that level of distractions in the process. So that's the principle. Wherever there are these distractions in the process that could lead people away from the giving page, we want to get rid of those. We want to focus the page, streamline it, focus on one primary call to action. One idea on the gift array, and shoot, we could talk about a lot of ideas on the gift array, but here's just one simple one. As we look at gift arrays and we look at sort of what are we asking people to choose in that process, we need to make sure that we're asking people to choose the frequency of their gift before we ask them to choose how much they're going to give. That may seem like a simple thing, but a lot of times the default placement of the gift frequency, by that I mean, are you going to give one time, are you going to give monthly? Oftentimes the default placement is after the gift amounts. Sometimes it's a little checkbox that you say, yes, make my gift a monthly recurring donation. Here's what we want to do, and here's a real experiment. Version A uses that type of idea where you have the gift amounts and then a little checkbox. Make this a recurring gift of, and then it kind of dynamically inserts your gift amount. They tested this against more of this kind of tabbed style approach, where at the top you've got two tabs. You've got single gift or monthly gift, one time or recurring. You choose the frequency first, and then you choose the gift amount. It sets the right context for the person to choose the gift amount, because my one-time gift is going to look a heck of a lot different than my monthly gift. I might choose to give you a $150, $200 gift right now. Maybe I'm even giving at the $1,000 level. But if I'm going to give to you every single month, I'm probably not going to give you $1,000 a month if that was my one-time intention. Maybe I'll give you a couple $100 a month, or something smaller. Usually it's a smaller percentage. This experiment led to a 15% increase in donations by putting that frequency first, setting the proper context for the gift amount decision. So there's just one of many different gift array ideas we could kind of unpack today. One idea on optimizing the messaging. And again, if you've attended other Next After training, this is probably a pretty one you've seen many, many times, but it's really critical. And we'll even see it today as we look at some of these pages live here in a few minutes. And that is your value proposition. We need to answer this one critical question on the page. Why should I give to you rather than to some other organization, or even give at all? If 87% of people on the page are choosing not to give, maybe it's because we're not giving them compelling reasons on the page to actually give. We're telling them, hey, this is the place you can give us your money. That's at least clear, but it doesn't help me move forward towards wanting to give to you if I'm not already fully motivated to give when I'm on the page. So we need strong value proposition copy. This is a very simple example. Version A has effectively no copy on the page. Version B has several paragraphs of copy explaining why someone should give to this organization, and it led to a 150% increase in people actually giving. Very few people are fully motivated to give to you when they first land on the page. They need this type of copy and messaging and value proposition to get them over the line. One other idea for you just around recurring giving. When you get to the end of the donation form, if someone's intending to make a one-time donation, you might actually just ask them if they want to give monthly. Maybe that sounds overly simplistic, but it can be really effective. Prompt those one-time donors to upgrade their gift to a recurring donation. Now, you're probably, again, not going to ask them to give at the same level. If they're trying to make a $100 donation, you probably don't want to ask them to convert it to $100 per month gift, but you might ask them to give you $30 a month. And in the net, you're going to get a lot more revenue from that donor over time, and they're going to be more engaged, and retention rates go up when people start to give on a recurring basis. Here's one experiment example. These are the same exact donation page, but version B, when you come to the bottom, you click the donate button to actually complete your gift. It pops up and it says, hey, before we process your gift, which is a critical part of the copy, clarity that the gift has not been given yet, we have a special opportunity for you to consider. It gives a lot of copy about why someone should become a monthly donor, the unique impact, the unique benefits of it. It asks for a specific level of giving. It says on that orange button, yes, convert my gift into a however many dollar amount monthly donation. But you always have the option to say, no, just process my one-time donation. This experiment led to a 210% lift in recurring donors without significantly harming overall donations or anything like that. All in all, this is leading to results moving up and to the right. So these are some of the little tactics that can move the needle in a really significant way. We're not going to unpack any more of those kind of teaching style tactical things. We're going to jump right to some live pages. Last thing before we look at those donation pages is a couple just kind of next steps for you to consider as we go throughout the rest of our time together, optimizing some pages live. First of all, we have a brand new course on donation page optimization. We have looked at maybe 1% of what's in that course today. So if any of that is interesting to you or already beneficial to you, you'll probably find tremendous value in this course. If you go ahead and scan that QR code, you can be one of the first to get access to this course. We just released it this week. These courses normally cost $299. You can get it for $99 today, and you'll get lifetime access to the course. So you can always come back to it next month, 6 months from now, next year, 3-5 years from now to go reference it, learn from it again, review different tactics, review concepts, all that sort of stuff. So scan the QR code, go check it out. You can get access to that course today. Adam, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, this is the one my teammates are going to get driven crazy by, but we've only got a limited amount of time for Nathan and I to run through some actual real life examples from donation pages that have submitted over the last couple of weeks from y'all. Our team is going to be more than happy to follow up with 20-minute sessions for as many of y'all as want to jump on. We'll use the next after data-backed methodologies and best practices in these. Let myself, and I have a couple teammates here, let us help you. Nothing more than just, hey, something what we're about to do for these 5 nonprofits, we want to do for you in a live environment. Scan that QR code. It'll take you right to a scheduling page. You'll get either one of myself or one of other 2 team members, Bam or someone else, a couple other people have. So I'm excited about this too. I think you can schedule 2 weeks out in advance if it works for you to fit in the timing. I know July 4th is coming, but all right, I think we're ready to go.
Cool. I've got one more thing. If you want to go even deeper, get a full kind of analysis of your whole donation experience, as well as your sort of email acquisition experience compared to what we've learned through testing and optimization, you can check this out as well. We call it the mystery donor analysis. Again, you can scan that QR code. I'll put all 3 of those up here. But we'd love to go look at that whole process with you, compare it to our library of experiments, and see what are the ways we can improve and optimize your results, both for acquiring new emails and building that kind of growing community of supporters. And then also, how do you get more of them to say yes to giving? We'd love to help you go build those plans. So I'll keep this up for a second as we go switch over to some live donation pages. As I get those up, Adam, do you see any questions in the chat already, things that we should discuss?
Yeah, we had, well, the one that just popped in through, looks like from Stephanie, a question on recurring giving. Nathan, I'm going to send this your way because, well, right, you're the only person here. Wisdom from your old campaign donation page template says not to default to monthly because it decreases donations. Do you still advise avoiding monthly defaults?
Yeah, great question. And I will tell you, we are about to release very shortly a brand new donation page template that updates a lot of that stuff. So it's a good question. There's not like a right or wrong, a yes or no that's universal for everyone or for every context. If you're specifically asking someone to go make a recurring gift, absolutely, you should default on that page to the monthly option. If what's led them there is language around becoming a monthly donor, default it to monthly, make the page all about monthly. You might find that if you default to a monthly on like on your main donation page, it could probably go either way, depending on what your messaging looks like, depending on the context. We'll look at a couple examples of some live donation pages here in a moment where you've got some of these organizations that are almost entirely focused on recurring giving. And if that's what all your messaging is about, yeah, it should be defaulted to recurring giving. If you're not talking about that actively, if it's not something that's actively a part of your messaging and mission and all that stuff, you might not be able to get away with defaulting it. So that's one of those that you really have to put to the test in order to actually know, is it effective for you and in a specific context, because the context matters.
That's great. And Stephanie makes a great point too, is thinking about, hey, are we prioritizing long-term donations and more consistency? You're going to see potentially a drop in the volume of donation conversions, but you're gaining that consistency, right? So thank you for that, Nathan. Thanks for the question, Stephanie. One other question before we head into the fun stuff here. Would you create a math formula to convert a one-time donation into an appropriate monthly amount?
Yes, absolutely. Now, I can't tell you exactly what the formula should be for you. There's some tools that have like kind of AI tools in the background that are going to recommend something for you. It's kind of a black box. You don't know what the calculations are. There's others. And in fact, I mean, shout out to the iDonate team, has that kind of pop-up tool baked in. You can go customize those formulas to say, you know what, I want to show for whatever the dollar amount is, ask them to give 30% of that or 50% or 20%, whatever the percentage is. And you can even set some various criteria, like if they're giving a gift up to $100, ask them for 20% of that. If they're giving a gift of $100 to $500, maybe you want a different percentage. But yes, there's some math that can go into that equation. But again, it's typically going to be a smaller percentage of that one-time donation.
Sweet. I think I saw one last question too about FAQs on the donation page. Does it have a place? And if so, where?
Again, that's one of those that it's probably not going to be harmful, unless the caveat being, are you sending people away from the page to a separate FAQs page? Because now they're gone. We're going to treat that as it's an entirely different experience. They're not in the giving process anymore. It's maybe giving adjacent, but they're not on the page. You've lost them. So you're going to have to win them back and get them back to that page if you send them away. If you've got some FAQs, especially if they truly are frequently asked questions, if you're just making them up because you feel like you need them, don't put them on the page. If you've got a few things that people always ask almost every time, maybe that's worth including down below the form or something like that. But just be careful that you're not interrupting the experience and you're not sending people away from the page.
Cool. And we've got a handful of more. So let's flag these because I think we're going to try and do Q&A at the very back end. Otherwise, we're going to be, I have no problem running till dinner time, but I know we've got some really cool things planned. Should we jump into the first live?
Let's do it.
We'll call it a glow up. We're not going to call it a roast. It's a glow up.
It's a glow up. I love that. That's a much better term. Okay. First one we're going to look at here is Houston Food Bank. I'll share my whole kind of Chrome window here, and we'll turn this on so y'all can see it. All right, here we go. We're looking at Houston Food Bank. The first thing we've got to do is find where to give. I think that's oftentimes maybe the part of the process that's missed the most when we talk about page optimization is just how are people getting there? I would even argue that the way that someone gets there is probably the more effective thing in terms of how you can improve the results than just the form itself. If you've got a strong foundation of a form and a page, it's likely more influential how you're driving that traffic. What's their motivation? What's the copy that's led them there? Have they gone on this long series of like 8 to 10 to 12 different clicks to find the page? Because by the time they get there, they're frustrated and they're probably not going to get it. So luckily enough, this is a very easy page to find the giving options. There's options down here around where this kind of little shopping bag is. Make a donation. You've got this be part of the solution. Every $1 you give helps provide 3 meals. Donate button. I'm just going to click on the top navigation donate button. I like that it is kind of this higher contrast color. It's not just a black text link like everything else. It stands out so you can see it. We've certainly run some experiments where we have seen just adding that extra little visual emphasis can lead certainly to more clicks and more traffic, but in many cases, we've seen a significant uptick in donations just because you get more visibility and more eyeballs on it. So we'll go ahead and click that. And now we come to the donation page itself. I'll pause here for a second. Feel free to jump in the comments, jump in the chat. If you've got thoughts on these pages, if you've got questions about them, if you think, oh, that's an interesting kind of tactic or element, what do you think about it? Drop all those questions in the chat. We'll pause and we'll discuss as many of those as we possibly can. So if you've got any questions so far, drop them in the chat. We'll keep an eye on those. But here's the page, Houston Food Bank. Every $1 you give helps provide 3 meals. Adam, do you have any just kind of initial reactions as you see this page?
Yeah, it's easy. My eyes attracted to the frequency, right? But I'm looking at also from a tactical perspective, making landing pages for years, it feels like. At least from my view, I don't see anything distracting me to navigate me in the header. So no additional nav tools. I do know this because I took the optimization course last weekend. I'm curious to get your feedback on this kind of layout. So it's a 2-panel. You were mentioning, let's keep it slim. Let's keep it in a 1 row. In this case, is that something that might be better foot if you flip that right-hand column onto the top, move that in, and then proceed with getting the information in terms of I know you like to say create movement, like get them moving down the form to that donate button.
That's where my head goes to, like kind of first and foremost. Now we've run a handful of tests around that, just kind of the order of the page elements, multi-column versus single column. Some of those experiments, it doesn't change anything. Some of those it really does. And I think this might be one of those pages where it could matter a lot, particularly because the value proposition is over here on the right side and the form is on the left. The reason that matters is that we typically, in the English language, we're reading from left to right. And so I'm starting over here, which means you started the conversation by asking me to give. And I don't see any of the reasons why I should give until after you've already asked me to make the decision. If I say no at this point, it's really, really, really hard, just like psychologically, to overcome someone saying no. So I want to typically lead with the value proposition copy first to articulate what's the problem that we're trying to solve. What's that thing that you and me, the donors in the organization, care so much about that we want to give our money and time and effort and resources to go make a significant impact on? I want to lead with what's the problem, what's the solution, how can you impact that with a gift before I even ask you to make the donation. So what I would do in this case, an interesting test would be basically take exactly what's here, if I can highlight the right thing, and move this over the top. So all of this comes first. Put it in a single column. So you start with help our neighbors facing hunger. Right now, a very clear problem. 1 in 7 people in Southeast Texas don't have enough to eat. That's a huge problem. I would add some copy, maybe in a separate test of what Houston Food Bank is doing about it. What's the net impact that they're able to make when you give? How does your single contribution actually make a meaningful impact? And then move into the donation form. So you're ordering the conversation in a logical way, explaining the need, explaining the potential impact, and then you're actually asking them to make the gift with the form. I also have a little bit of pause. I'm curious what you think about this. Oftentimes when we go evaluate a value proposition, one of the components that we're looking at is believability or credibility. How much do I believe what you're saying? How much do I trust you? Now, I might have trust in the brand, especially if I'm in the Houston area, if I know people that have been impacted by Houston Food Bank. But it's 2024 and life is expensive. Food is expensive. And so it's hard for me to go rationalize, how do you provide 3 meals with $1? So if that's true, which I'm going to assume it is, can you explain it more to help me have trust in it, to actually believe what you're saying is true? I want to believe you, but I want a little bit more detail of how is that even possible? Because if that's true, that's amazing. And I might want to give you $500 because shoot, that's a lot of meals that I can provide. That's my gut take on it. Do you have any thoughts on that? Is that kind of like language and that promise that's being made?
Yeah, I would have to agree with you on that one. Even just a small amount of copy to provide contextual how this happens, it's going to go that step further. Like you're trying to build trust, right? Effectively with potential donors. That'll go a long way. I mean, I know my son eats like 5 tacos, and if I get that for $1, yes. But there's cost of living in 2024 is just crazy. A lot of the comments are very similar to what you've already pointed out, Nathan. A lot of people like the high contrast, the hover state of the main donate button to highlight the fact that, hey, there's an action you should click. Let's see what else we got going here. Megan saying that they have a similar setup with 2 columns on their desktop, and they've been testing, which is great. Form on the left, one for monthly campaigns, and the form on the right, one for single gift campaigns. That's really interesting on that aspect too.
That is interesting, and I again, the context is the most important thing in that case. I don't know what your monthly campaigns look like. I would reference there's an experiment we ran pretty recently that was basically asking existing donors to become a recurring donor, and we found that basically it was testing, should we have more copy on the page explaining why you should become a monthly donor. We found that it took a lot less copy to get someone to say yes because they were already familiar. So maybe that's the case in your situation, Megan. If people have that familiarity already, maybe they don't need that copy. They're already locked in. They're already in agreement. Maybe what you've said to them before has already gotten that motivation high enough. They just need the form. But the context, again, is so critical. It's hard to say there's a one-size-fits-all solution for everything when the context matters so much. There's lots of good comments in here. I like this comment from Boaz. This is how I order grant proposals, so the logical ordering makes sense to me. It's how, yeah. If you're going to go sit down with a donor face-to-face, you're going to have a real conversation. Why not go mimic that on the page in the same sort of way where you're explaining the problem, the solution, the impact, and then making the call to action? Well, one more thing I'll call out on this, and then we can jump maybe to the next page. I do like this kind of become a faithful friend call out on the monthly giving option. I would recommend for Houston Food Bank, something that you might test is even more kind of, I would say, value language around that. I love the visual emphasis on the monthly giving. One thing we've found is that adding that when it's kind of, I would call it value-centric language, when you're actually explaining the additional impact that's made, it doesn't have to be long. It could be like, when you give monthly, you're helping provide meals every single day, something like that. Just some additional value proposition. We've seen that lift overall conversion, even when it doesn't lift monthly giving on its own. So I would consider running a test where you add a little bit more language on that call out to say, what's the unique impact? Not just becoming a faithful friend, that sounds nice, but what's the impact of it? It may lead more people to give monthly. It also may just lift conversions on the page overall.
Cool. And Nathan, if we scroll down all the way real quick, I think that when I was doing some pre-work here, we got secure payment call out with the padlock, a really, really easy thing that you could deploy and actually does bump like 10 or 15% conversion rate when you make sure and give people an understanding, hey, like we're not just selling your credit card information on the web. This is safe and consistent. Is there anything else in this final section here that you see that would be beneficial to make small tweaks to get them just a couple more percentage points further along in their conversions?
This is one, and we'll probably see it on a handful of pages here, so I don't want to like give everything away on the one page, but this is one I just always want to caution everyone about deploying without testing. The various times where we've tested this kind of cover the processing fees language, we've seen it be harmful to conversions. Oftentimes, a lot of the data that gets shared about this type of field is like adoption rates. You're really looking at, of the people who choose to give, how many people choose to cover the fees. There's not as much data out there about how does having this on the form in the first place impact someone's willingness to give at all. And again, what we've seen through testing is that the times we've tested it, it hasn't helped. In some cases, it's actually harmed performance. So if you can, I would put this to the test before you go kind of blindly roll it out. There are, again, some tools that have like dynamic deployments of this based on different giving amounts or giving levels and things like that. Those are really interesting. But again, I would test them to know, are they doing the right things for you? Are they actually leading to more donors and more revenue? And honestly, if it's harming overall donations, total donors, even if maybe it's bumping up your average gift a little bit, I'm going to lean more into having more donors than I would have a slightly higher average gift size. I'm not saying don't use it, but I am saying be cautious and put it to the test. All right, before we spend the next 30 minutes on this one page, because we definitely could, let's jump to our good friends at Compassion International. Any thoughts on this one, just from the get-go, from the jump here?
I'm excited to do this one only because it's, to me, it's such a unique pathway to donation, right? I got a high contrast, easy to find CTA button. Curious about, is it like the copy of that support? I know exactly what's going to happen when I click on that. And is that kind of like the go-to yes for this particular instance, or is there something that's more clear from the copy?
Yeah, well, that's what's probably, I would say, from my perspective, is challenging with trying to look objectively just at this page, because like we've given to this organization in the past. Next, after we've worked with this team, we did for a number of years doing some optimization work, so I'm close to it. So I kind of know what all the things mean. If you're coming in with totally fresh eyes, I would wonder, do you know what it means to release a child from poverty? What does that actually look like? Do you have enough information before you start this search to go sponsor someone? Do you know what sponsorship actually means and what that looks like? Do I know that sponsoring a child is donating? Those could be questions that I have. Granted, I know that they do a lot of testing and optimization on these pages at the same time. So I'm not going to stand here and cast too much judgment, but I would say these are good things to consider as someone coming in who's fresh. Do they have all the appropriate context and kind of insider knowledge maybe to know what all of your terms mean? Or could you benefit from just some more kind of plain language? I'll hit the sponsor a child. We're just going to kind of follow this, again, what I call the main donation pathway here. We're going to hit the link that's in the navigation, and we jump to this page. And for those that maybe don't have the context about this organization, almost every one of these donations is going to be a recurring donor. You're signing up to become a recurring donor on the monthly basis to sponsor a child. Gives them access to a lot of different things that they kind of unpack on their pages, access to kind of health things and education, all sorts of stuff for their livelihood, for their families, again, to release them from poverty is ultimately the goal. And you come into this search page. One thing I want to call out for people here is how big search pages like this, A, it's really important for this organization, but B, they can sometimes be a challenge when you're putting a lot of different decisions in front of someone at once. It can often be a challenge for someone to make any decision at all if I don't really know what to do, I don't really know where to go, or all these decisions look great. Every single one of these kids needs help and support. And you've got this person's been waiting for 472 days, 198 days, 395 days. Saying yes to one means I'm saying no to all the rest, which can be kind of a tricky decision. So I just want you to keep that in mind as you think about your own context and your own pages. If you're putting all these types of decisions in front of someone before they can make a donation, you might actually be keeping them from being able to say yes at all. Do you have thoughts on that?
I'm also incredibly familiar with this, right? So again, similar to you, I've been doing a sponsored child for years in a monthly fashion, which is great. I did see a comment in the chat that, hey, it could get a bit overwhelming in terms of the selections. I absolutely agree. My tendency is to instantly click on the first child just because of I've got crazy habits when it comes to web pages, right? But as I was kind of prepping for this today, I did notice there's a handful of steps and clicks that you have to take to get to the actual donation setup. I know that each click you take, it's going to diminish your ability to actually be a converted donor from that aspect.
Totally. And I do remember an experiment that we ran, and I don't remember the exact context. It may have been in a different part of the website, but basically when you had this sort of filter for like searching for someone by birthday. So if I want to put in my birthday, I could put that in here and it'll show me all the kids that have a matching birthday. That's kind of cool. At least at the bare minimum, on my birthday each year, I'm going to be reminded of this child I sponsor. Maybe I write them a letter. It's a really, really cool way to approach it. There was a test that was run to basically say, should we go feature someone, like basically take some of the decision fatigue out of it and say, hey, we recommend you go sponsor this one child. You still have the options down below to choose if you would like to. I saw Tracy made a comment in here. I'm a compassion sponsor. I know what all this stuff means, and I love the power of selection. So that could be really impactful for some people, but we found it led to an uptick if you gave them just kind of one choice and kind of streamlined that decision without taking away the power to choose, but trying to help cut through maybe some of that decision fatigue that can set in. So those are some things to consider. And again, compassion is lots of testing and optimization as well for the broader context for all of us. Again, if you have these places in your website, in your donation experience that require some decisions that maybe someone wasn't prepared to make, how can you streamline that decision process and remove some of the burden that comes with having to choose, especially from a lot of good options? Let's get to so I clicked on the first one here. Let's dive in just as you would, Adam. You come to this page, you can meet the child, you get a little bit more information about them. Down here, you kind of unpack some of the details. Your $43 per month will provide, I'm intentionally not saying the name because I'm just going to butcher the pronunciation. I don't want to do that. You'll provide this child with all these different things. Here's all the benefits and all that sort of stuff. So they've got this whole kind of product page, if you will, that's outlining all the unique places that you can make an impact. I saw one of the comments here, and maybe it's off my screen at the moment, but someone basically saying from the get-go, I'd love to know what it costs to sponsor a child. Maybe that's a test to, can you be forthcoming with what that cost is up front? Maybe it's something they've tested as well, but I think is a really interesting thing. Do you lead with how much it costs? Do you put it towards the end? Where do you put it in that process? I think, again, the broader kind of context for all of us today is like, these are all levers you can pull, things that you can tweak and change and test to see what's really going to be the most effective to get people to say yes at every single one of those steps. I'm clicking through, I'm adding this child to my cart, which again is a kind of I think worthy of camping out on that process for a moment. You can see I was already messing around in here. I now have two children that I'm about to sponsor. Adam, what do you think about the checkout cart type of process? And not just for compassion, but just in general as it relates to donations.
Yeah, if it's executed well, I could see testing and seeing the benefits of that and deploying certain situations. The problem is you got to make sure that your tech, the back end of your website supports that. And it's easy to A, find your cart once you add something to it. And then B, it's easy to click and get to and actually check out. A lot of times what I've experienced is nonprofits will have the cart, but then like where to go. There's no clear way to get to the cart. Maybe there's something going on with the donation page where it's not redirecting. So there's a lot of the technical aspects. It's introducing an additional variable, which, if you're at that point in your program, that's great, but might be something to consider testing, of course, obviously. But think about, at the end of the day, like, what is the donor expecting? Mm-hmm. And what is their donation habits when they're on that donation page?
Yeah. And I would say it probably makes sense in this case. I always want to be cautious of like checkout language, because that gets more into like e-commerce world and puts you more the transactional mindset than it puts you in a giving mindset, which could be harmful to giving, and even especially like just the long-term kind of mindset of a donor. So I'd always be careful that checkout and cart language, but in this case, it may make sense as kind of the functionality. What concerns me is when it's just kind of a typical donation. You're not sponsoring someone, you're not adding multiple things that you're giving donations to, but you still have the cart process. I would move away from the cart unless you have a really good argument as to why you should put it in place. And then again, as you said, you should test it and make sure you know that it's impactful. Lots more we could chat about there, because there's lots of cool and interesting things that Compassion does. Let's jump to Sea Shepherd here.
Yeah, I'm excited about this one.
Well, you take it then. I'll click around for you, but you take it. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, so to be maybe reductionist to extent, they're there to help protect and preserve endangered species in the ocean, right? And some of y'all may remember the Sea Shepherd. I think Discovery Channel had them highlighted at one point in the last couple of years, where they used nonviolent force to basically ward off poachers and people causing harm to the ocean life, right? When this popped up, Nathan and I are like, oh yes, we got to do this. By far, this may be the clearest CTA button in the top right-hand corner. I love the orange. It fits the perfect scheme. And the contrast to the black to make that pop, you know exactly what's going on. Nathan, let's go ahead and click on this.
Cool. I will say I poked around because you and I were talking about the water cannons that they use to like blast poacher boats and stuff. They have some volunteer opportunities, but it's unclear if you get to run a water cannon.
When one pops up for a water cannon, I will promptly apply, and that's probably a terrible idea, knowing my penchant for chaos. This one's a unique one, and thankfully we picked this for a reason, Nathan. This kind of meshes a donation page, traditional one, with kind of the more modern feel, is what we'll say, where it's kind of taking you through these multiple steps in a single pane. You've got experience with this one in terms of like this layout. Like, what is jumping out to you with this format specifically?
Yeah, well, I have a lot of thoughts on this. What I'll start with is just saying this. We have not run an experiment on a multi-step form where we've seen a multi-step outperform what I would call a well-optimized single-step donation form. That said, you go talk to other providers that have kind of done the opposite and even have data to say, hey, when you move to this kind of multi-step approach, it outperforms what you had before by 1.5, 2x, whatever the percentage is. The reality is, like, not every form is equal. And not every multi-step form is equal. There's lots of forms that are pretty clunky and cumbersome. There's some that are a lot more streamlined. So it's hard to get a true like apples to apples test on a single step versus a multi-step. But again, I will say we have not run a test where we've seen a multi-step outperform a well-optimized single step form. That said, I would always put it to the test if you are thinking about moving either direction. If you have a single step, you're thinking about moving to multi, test it. If you have a multi-step, you're thinking about moving to a single step, test it so that you know that you're not harming your results in the process. And the overall layout, I would say, even if you have this kind of multi-step approach, it's the same type of thing we talked about when we looked at Houston Food Bank. You've got the left to right approach where you've kind of got the multi-column. At least you're in the right order of like value, copy before you make the donation ask. Although the form is slightly above where the headline is, so that might take priority. That's the particular challenge of a two-column approach, is you don't exactly know how people are going to behave on the page, what they're going to interact with first, what they're going to read first. I would take this type of approach, move that multi-step form down below, give yourself more space to unpack at the top why someone should give that gift, and then you can have your widget below that starts into the multi-step process. But give yourself more opportunity to explain more of why someone should give. A line or two of copy typically isn't going to be enough in most scenarios. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you have to take into your donor base into account, right? As a marketer, I love my segmentation. I love understanding who I'm talking to. I think that goes into play here. Like I love these modal steps. I just default to that. It's what I like. Whereas you may have a big chunk of your donors who just prefer, hey, let's do a well-optimized single page. That's what we're used to. That's what we want to use. And let's go do a thing, right? So there's some concept, this voice of donor that needs to go into this in combination with testing, right?
Sure.
For this example right here, I would want to see more of where does my money going to? How am I impacting the Sea Shepherd's mission, right? I know they call it, you could double up to your gift up to 150K, but like why? Like what would that do when I'm going to be giving that? Now, I do like the fact they have 4 options in their array. That goes along with best practices, right? Instantly tell me, hey, your donation is going to be secure with a nice little padlock, which we know that bumps up your conversion rate by 10 to 15%. I am curious, Nathan, to get your feedback about adding comments or instructions. It's an extra click, it's an extra field to fill out potentially. What's that going to do to kind of stop that forward momentum that you talk about?
Yeah, that's a question I had also, and I can't say. I don't know. But it is interesting, especially with the deployment of it, that you then have this kind of overlay on top of what already kind of feels like an overlay. And so I would think that if someone's clicking on that, maybe it is interrupting the momentum. At the same time, then this is where it comes back to kind of what you said about like almost voice of the customer, voice of the donor type of stuff. If there's a lot of situations where for one reason or another stuff we don't understand from the outside, where people need to add comments and instructions on giving and all that sort of stuff, this might be really needed. I can't say either way. I would look at sort of the utilization of this field. If it's not really being utilized and it's really not critical, I would test just hiding it and seeing what that does, because there's a world where it does kind of slow people down, and it seems like the deployment of it maybe is a little bit cumbersome. But again, these are assumptions, and these are things that can be tested. And we should always do that to cut through our assumptions and get some clean and clear data.
Man, and do I love the whale popping out of the page too? That's such a great image. So continue doing that. Give me sea life. Oh, and the next step here, I'm assuming that we're following a traditional progression of a single page with here's what you're giving, here's how you're going to give it with a method. Anything you see here that jumps out at you as potentially stopping conversions?
I mean, you mentioned up front like this donate securely, which I do like the language in the padlock. One thing that we have found, not necessarily in this layout, but in more of a single page approach, is this kind of stuff, the padlock, the language around security, is more effective when you get here. Because when I actually get to my payment details page, there's nothing about it being a secure gift. I'm not thinking about security until I'm giving you my credit card number. It doesn't matter to me over here. I'm not thinking about it. I'm not looking in the URL to see if it's a secure page. I assume it's secure, but I don't care about it until my anxiety kicks in when I'm giving you my credit card number. So that would be an interesting test here, is can you go move that padlock, that language right here on this page, payment details, padlock, your payment information will be kept secure. And then maybe I'll have the confidence to move forward here and have that reduction in my anxiety on the page. I want to be conscious of time because we've got 2 more pages we promised we would look at. We got 5 minutes till the top of the hour.
Let's rip it.
Let's go. Okay. World Relief. What are your top thoughts here?
See, I messed around with this one earlier, so I'm going to try and put those what I know already to the side. So donate buttons in the top right-hand corner. It's good. It melts in a little bit more with the blues and the overall color palette. Hover state, changing that to a complementary but kind of color. You see that yellow and that 2x impact would make that pop. Also, when you drop it down, you're getting multiple options. I found myself stalling or pausing for a second when I clicked it originally because I wanted to go right to the donate page. I get why this is here. But Nathan, if you click on even just donate monthly, let's see what happens, because I'm thinking, hey, this could be solved pretty easily with a tab layout on the donation page once you get there. Well, what happens when we click though?
And to your point, when I pulled this page up initially, I did the same thing, and I'm doing it now. I'm clicking on the donate button, it goes nowhere. I would want this to go somewhere, but yes, let's click on donate monthly under the drop down. We come here. One thing to consider, and we haven't touched on this, so I'll kind of go back. This is an interesting layout. One thing that we have tested is actually, can you put these 2 buttons, give once, give monthly, donate once, donate monthly as two buttons side by side in the navigation, especially if you go blow this out and you kind of widen it up here a little bit. I'm not sure how much you can see on your screen at the moment, but there's a lot of real estate still in that navigation. If you could put those buttons side by side. We've run that test a handful of times and seen that it doesn't always increase monthly giving, but it often does lift overall traffic and conversions, just driving more visual attention to the opportunity to give and giving you some context on, oh, I have choice in the matter. I can choose to give once, I can choose to give monthly, maybe even autonomy in how I'm going to go support you. That would be an interesting test here to cut through kind of this drop down style thing and then give, again, more visibility to the choice you have in the matter. Do you have thoughts specifically on the recurring giving page?
Let's see. So we've got a give monthly, and my old eyes are failing me. I've got this blown up as much as I can. The one thing that did stick out earlier when I was looking at this is, what do we want to do? We're going to keep them on the page. Get rid of that hamburger button. Yes, that's what it's called in the top right-hand corner. Do not let anyone navigate. This one, I think, is to let them sign in. So I get that. What do you think about navigating away on that here CTA within the copy on that last line? That gives them an option to, hey, if you accidentally landed here, you want to give monthly, like go here. It's the same on the other page too as well to bring you back and forth. Is that detrimental, or is that a smart move to say, hey, we want to honor the intention that was originally brought around?
Right. Yeah, no, it's interesting. And that's not something we've like put to the test necessarily. I would test it against just using that tabbed option, kind of like you mentioned, using the tab approach for the gift frequency selection. So they still have the choice, but you're not basically introducing an unexpected question of like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be here. Maybe I shouldn't be on the page at all. What am I doing? And so now that's an extreme maybe scenario, but there's potential that that's kind of what it's doing in the mind. Again, I don't know, but this is something you could put to the test. I would test it against putting that kind of tabbed approach on the page. Yeah. So it's not a question of, am I doing the right thing, but it's a choice and it's an option that you have in the process. Or maybe you can just get rid of it in the first place and you don't need it at all.
Yeah, I think if you tested that tab version on a single donation page, that removes that. Still keeps in the continuity and keeps your people on the page. The other thing that jumped out to me when I was looking at this is, where would you put the corporate match option? Most of the time I would see your giving amounts, your gift arrays, followed by your donor information, the payment information, and then at the bottom is where you find that match.
And the best deployments of it that I've seen come afterwards. They come after the gift is made. They come on the confirmation page. Especially leading with it seems very potentially cumbersome. But after I've made the gift, then giving them the option to go match it through their employer, that seems like the right place for that next step. To me, I've seen some interesting implementations of it using API calls and that sort of stuff to go like auto feed in who your employer is and stuff. Lots of cool ways you can deploy that. Takes a little bit of more technical expertise to do that too, but yeah, that's my high level thoughts there.
Okay, cool. And the gift array, I know, also stick to 4, and then the other option is your best practice there. This one sneaks in a 5th one, so it's not quite that full 6 where it is, according to Next After's experiment, it's kind of cumbersome. Is that 5 versus 4 option going to make a huge difference here?
It's, again, one of those things I would test. We've run a lot in the past just 12 months where we're reducing the size of the gift array down to 3 or 4 options and seeing that lead to increases in conversion. I'm not ready to say there's a hard and fast rule where you got to stop at 4. I would start at 4 and I would test either direction so that you know. Maybe you can move the needle by adding another option. If it's specific to like a donation ask that you're making that's leading someone to the page, adding that could be helpful. But I'd start at 4 and then kind of go from there with your testing. I do see we're at the top of the hour. We do have one more page to look at if you can stick around. If you've got to go, that's okay. We'll have this recording you can come back to as well. But can we take a quick look at C-SPAN, who I think we both recently learned is a nonprofit?
Yeah, who would have thought?
Well, let's do it. Here, I'll widen the page a little bit so we can see the donate button.
There you go. My instant jump out was like, it was a little bit hard to find it. There's a lot going on. There's a lot that C-SPAN wants to show and give you resources to. Kind of feels like it's a little bit buried amongst a sea of other options. What about you, Nathan?
I feel the same way. As much as we want to add like kind of visual priority to the button so that it stands out, there's a lot of things being given priority on the page, which means that kind of nothing's being given priority on the page. Got like the different blue colors to highlight Congress, Executive, Supreme Court. You've got this card option that I don't know what that's about. That's next to donate. Is it the same thing? Is it different? You're also competing with like Google ads at the same time that are dynamic and they're changing and they're flashing. And so that's where my eye goes. So I might miss it altogether, even though it's yellow. There's a lot happening here that just could be this. Everything's competing for my attention. When everything is competing for it, then nothing's going to win. There is really no priority, at least in my opinion about it. Again, you could run some kind of interesting testing around how do you reprioritize the navigation for the most important thing. I see Stephanie asking, is C-SPAN in the room with us now? They can let us know if they'd like to. We'll see. I'm going to click the button. We did find it. To be fair, I think we both knew where it was, but then there's all these other things happening. And then we come here. What do you think about this page?
2 columns is initially what sticks out. I get a great visual to lead me in the H1 position, asking me, hey, to support. I see that the navigation is gone, which is good. Although curious, double give button up there, I'm assuming it loops you around. So that could be potentially something you could remove, and even probably it looks like a sticky bar. You could probably
it drops you down, which on this page, because the form is at equal height with the value proposition copy, it's probably not really doing anything. We've kind of seen both ways on this. We've seen like this sort of start your gift button on a mobile device sometimes be effective, like in a high urgency campaign where most people showing up are already fairly motivated to give. On a mobile device, you hit the button, you drop to the form. That's been effective in some cases. We've also seen where that shortcut button jumps you all the way past the copy, and then now you don't have any of the reasons why you should give and can be harmful. So that's one that's like, test it because the context on it matters a lot. On the image, it's a pretty looking page. I like that.
Yeah.
But my opinion about design and how it feels aesthetically is separate from what the data might say about what's effective. We often will start with like, let's drop the images and focus on the reasons why you should give, and then test back into the imagery. I would imagine this one probably doesn't make too much of a difference, but it can be really hard to figure out what's the most impactful and effective image. I like to say that, like, the common sort of phrase that an image is worth 1,000 words. When you show an image on a page, how do you know that the words going on in your donor's head are the same as what's in your head? How do you know that it's actually adding value unless you've actually tested it? So we typically like to scale it back, drop the images, and then test back into them if they're going to add value to the page and to the conversation.
Cool. They did a good job with the value prop on the left-hand side. They jumped right into it with the right-hand side. I'd be curious to test on again, 2 column versus 1 column. I know that all tests point towards that 1 column streamline aspect.
Yeah, I would do that. I would certainly move this form down below the copy to kind of order the logic of the page in that way. I wrote down some just notes on the value proposition piece. I first wrote, like, I love it. I love that they have copy, significant copy. A lot of it, I think, is pretty solid language. There's also a million things on this kind of foundation that you can start to iterate on and to test. Why give? Your support is more crucial than ever. Your gift directly supports C-SPAN's mission to provide an unfiltered window into government. It's kind of their unique kind of niche, where they sit, who they serve. I think this is interesting. Your gift matters. As fewer people subscribe to cable, C-SPAN's essential funding is threatened. I just have to pause and wonder, is that motivating to the potential donor, or is that just purely the business case on the organization side? Because obviously that matters as you're trying to figure out, as an organization, how do we find new sources of funding? How do we continue off into the future to provide some essential services here? But is the donor motivated by solving your kind of business problem, or is there a different way you can frame this? Maybe to talk about, like, imply that maybe it will go away or something like that, or they won't be able to be as impactful or effective without funding from you. But I probably wouldn't frame it as like the business case here. I would figure out what's the language that's going to be motivating to the donor that's really just around impact, not just giving money to go fill your budget. Maybe maybe I'm being too harsh there. I'm not intending to be harsh.
Yeah,
That's my gut reaction to it.
I read that as opposite, actually. If I think
Well,
about who's watching C-SPAN or who is traditionally, they're going to be the cable subscribers. They're going to be the people that, if that's gone, then it'll be a large chunk of how they get information about how the government's going on removed, right? Think about potentially my parents.
Yeah.
And that makes sense from that perspective. Again, it comes down to who your donors, who are your base, and then who are you going after for that next wave, the next generation. That's when you start to see, like you said, iterations of that messaging slightly tweaked to start to play into impact.
Well, that's what I love about this type of conversation, and the whole conversation around value proposition is like, it's and really important for all of us to know is two people can bring two totally different perspectives to the same line of copy and interpret it in fundamentally different ways. And so in an ideal world, we could craft our copy individually to every single person who hits the page. That's not the reality, though. So we've got to put these messaging angles to the test to see what's going to work to get the most people through and lead to more people actually saying yes. So these exercises are really helpful for idea generation, but they don't tell you what works. You still have to go put it to the test. Any closing thoughts on the C-SPAN page?
Now, it's really interesting to have that kind of tabbed approach in the choose amount as you kind of jumping through the different parts of the form. It stays static, actually in this position, but as you move forward in your journey to finally contributing, kind of jumps you through the hoops. So your payment selection, and then your last steps are your credit cards and or your payment information, and then at the very bottom too. I always, as a marketer, I love this because I want self-reported attribution is what I refer to it. However, Nathan, in a donation form, is this helpful or is this hurtful when it comes to actually getting people across the line?
Yeah, again, I mean, it would fall in the category of things that I would call non-essential for the transaction. Typically, general rule of thumb, if you're adding things that are non-essential to the form, you're often going to be adding unnecessary friction. You might be able to get away with it without impacting something when it's a simple question, it's framed in a clear way, it's an easy answer. But there's always the world where this could trip people up, especially if you're kind of 3 steps into the form. It's kind of unrelated to the other content fields on the page. Maybe it does give someone pause. Again, it sounds like a cop-out. Maybe it is. You got to put it to the test, especially if it's going to be if it's a field or a question that's non-essential to the transaction or to the conversion. I would always test it to know, is this okay for me to ask here? Or should I put this in the follow-up process, either on the confirmation page or even in a follow-up email? Because there's always ways to get that information. It doesn't have to be in the donation form itself.
Cool. Good to know. We could probably do this for like every week, it feels like.
Just keep going. Just keep going. I see there's lots of comments and things coming through. People grateful for the time, which we're grateful for your time, for spending an hour plus with us. I know we've gone over here a little bit. I'll put these kind of calls to action back up in case you want to dive into that course or have a chat with Adam and the I Donate crew as well. So give me a moment to do that. But Adam, any parting thoughts before we say goodbye to our friends here?
No, this has been great. It's been good to get back on doing some educational webinars. It's been a couple months for me. Nathan, is this worth doing for a campaign-specific donation page glow up, maybe in October? Think about giving season?
Sounds fun. Year end's coming. It's going to come faster than I think all of us would like, but it's coming regardless. Yes, that's kind of our working ideas. Is
cool.
We go run this back as we get closer to year end time.
Yeah. If you think that would be favorite 2000s punk bands, you're going to out us now. So I'm more post-hardcore. Kristen, I'm Under Oath at Lev. If I get into like Taking Back Sunday, that's my jam. Nathan, you have a few deeper cuts, I think.
Well, I mean, Yellow Card is my band. They have been forever. They still are. My 4-year-old daughter in the car now asks for Yellow Card when she gets to choose the music. So I think I'm doing something right as a father. That, and even like the starting line, she calls that the drum song, and she wants that on the car. So anyway, I'm doing something way right or maybe way wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, I had my kids to Taking Back Sunday along with me in the car the other day, and my wife thought I was absolutely crazy. I'm like, hey, this is life. Next thing you know, they're gonna have tattoos and they're just gonna be joining me at shows. If you all think that we should be doing this in October for giving season as a tune-up, drop that in the comments. I think it's a great idea based on how many people have signed up for this. Nathan always brings the heat, and the Next After team's got the data to make this worthwhile, in my opinion. And I just love any excuse to do live events with Nathan. Let's be honest. From
Yeah.
my perspective, like, you got the QR codes. I kid you not, like, we could do this for hours. I'm on standby. I've got my team on standby. If you want to click that, we're doing 20-minute overhauls, or I guess tune-ups, if you will. Just one-on-one sessions for anyone who wants it that we didn't get around to. And by that, I mean, there's, I think, we almost get to 1,000 people that signed up for this. And I think a good 500 to 600 people submitted their donation pages. The need is there. We're here to provide resources. I will send one email after this to y'all, providing you a replay link, as well as some resources that Nathan touched on, some resources that iDonate has for y'all as well. And I'll share that link for the meetings if y'all want to schedule that later. Nathan, what else do you have other than I say go do that optimization training course? Help me not look like a total silly goose today. And it really is so beneficial. I did it in probably 3 or 4 hours. Did it on Saturday. It was so great.
Yeah. Well, I'm about to roll out our brand new donation page template, and I'll drop that as a resource in the course as well. So definitely go check that out. I think it'll be helpful. Again, go have a chat with Adam and the iDonate crew if you want to get more of a custom look. And then if you want the kind of deeper dive into your full donation funnel, your full email acquisition funnel, we're happy to have that conversation too, and help you build out some test plans, as well as maybe even some digital growth initiatives. So you have those kind of options on your screen. I'll just kind of wrap up by saying, again, we're super grateful for all of you. The reason Adam and I are here is because we care about you. We care about your missions. We care about the cause of growing, giving, and generosity. And we want to share the things that we're learning through testing with you so you can see giving grow. Thank you for your time. Thank you for staying a little bit long. We wish you all the best as you go continue to optimize all your different donation pages, all of your fundraising. We're here for you to support you. So always reach out if you've got a question or you need anything. Thank you again. Take care, and we will see you next time.
Sweet. Thanks, everyone.